welcome Guy Kawasaki, tech influencer and Mercedes-Benz brand ambassador.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Guy Kawasaki, and I am a Mercedes-Benz brand ambassador. A little bit more about my background. I used to work for Apple. I was Apple's software evangelist, and I was Apple's chief evangelist, 2 stints at Apple. This meant that, of course, that I worked for Steve Jobs. It's been a very exciting career. I live in Silicon Valley. My background is primarily technology. The brand ambassador program of Mercedes is quite an exclusive program. It is world-class athletes like Roger Federer. If you're into big wave surfing, there's Garrett McNamara. And I am neither a great tennis player nor a great surfer, but I am an evangelist. The word evangelism comes from Greek roots, meaning bringing the good news. So in my first stint as an evangelist at Apple, I brought the good news of Macintosh, how Macintosh was democratizing computing. Today, I am the chief evangelist of a company out of Sydney, Australia called Canva, C-A-N-V-A, and we are in turn democratizing design. But the hat that I'm wearing today is Mercedes-Benz brand ambassador. The booth here features a lot of our latest, greatest, and future technologies. The overall vision, the overall framework of Mercedes is defined by an acronym CASE, C-A-S-E. And CASE stands for, first, the C stands for connected, the A stands for autonomous, the S stands for shared, and the E stands for electric. Over the course of 2 days, we're having 8 of these inspirational talks. Today is the second day, so we have 4 today on the hour starting now. And in this particular session, we're going to talk about the E part of CASE, the electric part. And so we're going to have some outside perspective and also an inside perspective on what's going on with the E part of CASE, the electric. By the way, many of you are on social media. We have a hashtag for this entire coverage of Mercedes at CES. The hashtag is MBCES, Mercedes-Benz CES. So if you're tweeting anything out, please use #MBCES. Also, we have solicited questions from social media for this session, but we'll also be happy to take some questions from you. So as you hear the discussion of CASE and the electrification of cars, please save those questions to the end. There'll be people with microphones who'll come up to you and hand you the mic, and so everybody can hear what you're asking. So to start, I would like to ask Ola Källenius and Roger Atkins to please come forward. Good morning. So, starting with my dear colleague from London here, this is Roger Atkins.
Hello.
He runs a consultancy about the electrification of vehicles. And as you will soon see, it's hard to get him to come out of his shell. So, he has to warm up. You'll see that. Ola Källenius, on the other hand, I'll read you his very impressive title, and then I'll translate his title for you. So his title is Member of the Board of Management of Daimler AG, Group Research and Mercedes-Benz Car Development. Let me translate this for you. This means that he reports directly to the CEO of Daimler, and he's in charge of all of R&D for Mercedes-Benz. So that is quite a job. So first of all, the topic is electrification, or electricity and electric cars. So I'm going to ask our outside expert, Roger, here, to give us a framework, to give us a perspective. What's going on in the environment, in the industry? What are the forces that are making this kind of development so important, so crucial, and so valuable? So, Roger.
Okay. The simple fact is, let's be honest, nothing has any meaning unless you put it in a context. And the big context that I think we all know about now is the environment. Is about the challenges and the changes that are going on around us, mega cities, more and more people living in this urban environment, more and more need for energy, more and more devices using power, whilst at the same time we're trying to reconcile that with what's been happening with the environment. So a big light bulb moment has really come on. These are the old-fashioned light bulbs, by the way. You should now use LEDs, not these. But the light bulb moment has been that a transition from oil and gas and coal is well underway. It's going to take a bit of time. It's got to be something that's measured and managed. But that process of transition to renewable energy feeds into the requirement for energy storage. What does that mean? It means batteries. It means all sorts of storage propositions, fuel cells as well. And all of that then matches and marries across into this journey we're seeing with automotive into electric cars. So that very important light bulb moment has gone on around the world with many people. To give you a specific, it's quite amazing that the Rockefeller Brothers Institute, the people that were founders of Standard Oil, the beginning of oil and cars and the whole thing we've had for 130 years, they have divested all of their investments out of oil and gas and coal into renewables. So that's my kind of context of where I think we're going, Guy.
Kind of putting your money where your mouth is,
Exactly.
you would say. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Ola, in this context of the big picture, where's Mercedes?
Well, so speaking of light bulb, I would say already 10 years ago, we had a small light bulb that came on at Mercedes and at Daimler. And it's actually here on the stand. It's the Smart Electric Drive. When we launched the first generation of Smart Electric Drive in 2007, it was one of the first fairly affordable electric cars that you could buy. Was it slightly ahead of its time? Probably. Was the volume high? Not yet. We're now in the meantime with the car that we're showing here. We're in the 4th generation of Smart Electric Drive being launched this year. So we had a small light bulb moment, but of course, we were not there yet in terms of what you're talking about, a seismic shift. We do, however, believe that this seismic shift is close. And at the Paris Auto Show a few months ago, we decided to really flick the switch, and with a new product brand for electric intelligence, for electric product at Mercedes, EQ, we are now moving literally billions and billions of our R&D budget into this. Why is now the right time? Next to the things that you mentioned, now the technology is really coming together on the electric drive. The energy density of the batteries, it's starting to get interesting.
Yeah.
The cost of this technology through scale is starting to come down so that it becomes an economical proposition. And we believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, this is really going to take off. And we are ready to take off with it, with a whole host of interesting products around the product brand EQ.
Just for clarification, does this mean just the Mercedes cars are going to be electric, or is it the entirety of the Mercedes line?
Well, this is the benefit of being a big group with different divisions. From being the biggest truck maker in the world to the biggest bus maker in the world, a dominant player on the van side, the leading luxury brand in the world, all the way down to the perfect urban car. It's really from top to bottom. We're going to do it all. Smart is, by the way, the only brand, I believe, in the world that has its complete range, albeit not such a big range, but its complete range in both combustion engine and fully electric alternatives, every single model. So we have it all.
Okay.
The truck guys are working on trucks, electric trucks, for delivery situations in the city. Buses, an obvious thing. But as far as Mercedes is concerned, we're putting it into a flexible platform where we will be able to go with a range of different vehicles, both sedans as well as SUVs, in the different segments that we cover. And we have set as a first target, by 2025, so in 8 years' time, we will have at least 10 models in different segments, fully electric vehicles. So
Okay, it's everything.
it's an exciting time.
All right. So, Roger, what are the big challenges that Mercedes or really any car manufacturer faces for the electric car?
Well, you start with the fundamental, it's the battery. So as Ola says, the evolution of battery capability of different battery chemistries, battery packaging, battery management systems, quite a lot of things you're seeing in and around this show, which of course feed across from consumer electronics and so on and so forth. Those things are underway, but we're not at the point where it makes sense to make massive commitment if you haven't got to a certain level of maturity, because if you do, it can get easily superseded. It can be leapfrogged, if you like, and then you're a little bit in a kind of no man's land. One of the areas that I particularly like is Formula E. Now, does anyone know where this is? This is a well-known racetrack somewhere in the world. Well, I'll tell you, because you might not know. That's in London. That's in Battersea Park, right in the heart of London. So Formula E is in its third series, and it really is about focusing on operating in cities, which is where we want to see most electric vehicles. It's targeted very much at young people. In fact, I wish I was young and I'd been doing gaming, because I think on Saturday there is $1 million prize to win in terms of racing with Formula E virtual reality stuff. If only I'd carried on doing that when my kids were doing it, I could have had a crack at that. So this world of Formula E, that I believe Mercedes have an option of perhaps at some time, is getting ever more exciting. It's educating the public about electric vehicles. It's positioning them in city environments. And crucially, it's developing and test bedding the technology and the skills that can come together, that can then be transferred across into commercial vehicles, cars, and so on. So it's a really, really cool environment. It's a very exciting place.
Honestly, I've never been to a Formula E race. So is it totally quiet? They just whoosh by?
Okay, it's not NASCAR. I know that's a little bit different.
That's a good thing.
But it's even got, they've got robot cars, would you believe, in Formula E. This season they have a thing called Robo Race. So they even have electric cars that nobody's driving. I mean, that doesn't mean they're going to dispense with drivers completely, because that probably would be a bad thing. In fact, on that point, I think as we evolve into more electric vehicles in this world of autonomy, etc., motorsport will get more important and become more interesting. And I think people going, whether it's to NASCAR or Formula One or to other things where they can hear noisy, loud, fast, driven race cars, will become more important, ironically, as we move into this new mobility world. So, you know, I think things like Formula E, as well as Formula One, the traditional things, are only going to become more interesting and popular, because that's where people will go to hear the noisy stuff, in my mind.
Now, if I interpret you right, you know, the big challenge may be batteries, but what do you see as you know, from the other side, from the manufacturer side? Is it the infrastructure? Is it the battery? What is it that's the challenge?
Well, just to tag on to the motorsports topic for just a second, because you know I love motorsports, and I had the good fortune to spend a few years in Formula One. When we went semi-electric, and I know you live around the corner from our Formula One facilities, if you want to win in Formula One today, the pinnacle of motorsports, if you don't have the best integrated electric powertrain combined with a combustion powertrain, you're not going to win. And that's what we have had the good luck of managing the last 3 seasons with double championships. So it is a test bed for new innovative technologies under extreme conditions, absolutely extreme conditions. So we can learn in that field and, of course, create the fascination of the bus of the race drivers fighting for the championship. On the other end of that, you mentioned industrialization. This will be key. I brought this picture with me, which is, I believe, is the largest battery factory in Germany for complete battery systems, perhaps even in Europe. We have decided to invest in this facility another 500 million over the next few years, and on a worldwide basis in facilities like this, where we have the production and will have the production of our electric cars into the billions. And we need to ramp up the infrastructure to be able to get to the volume. Because if you want to flick the switch and you want to have a real paradigm shift, it's not enough if you just do a car here or a nice show car and you put it out there. You got to go into real volume, which means for a brand like Mercedes, hundreds of thousands of vehicles per year. And as we're doing the development, we are working on the industrialization side of this at the same time, and it's already quite far ahead.
Okay, how about we take some social media questions? One question is, will Mercedes continue offering electric cars that are based on conventional models, or is it going to do an all-new EQ type of... in other words, during this transition period, how are you going to make the transition?
In terms of platform, this is important. Over the next 10 to 15 years, I think it's going to be a situation in the market where it's really all of the above. It's not just one thing. Some companies, you can say you make one bet and you go for that bet. If you're the largest luxury manufacturer in the world, you cannot just make one bet, especially during the transition period, and you're covering every market and every corner of the world. So we're going to have to do everything, but part of that doing everything, a dedicated, scalable EV architecture from which you can do sedans, SUVs, larger vehicles, smaller vehicles, is crucially important, and yes, that's also part of our equation.
Okay. Roger, what are the societal impacts, this is a social media question, of electric cars? Does it mean, you know, the real world, less pollution, less traffic, less whatever? And of course, this is tied in the totality of case also, so...
Yeah, I think it's profound. I think it's huge. I think moving from owning vehicles to using vehicles is an immense change. It changes the way cities work. It changes the way people use their money. You know, we're already seeing outside of automotive, for example, with online shopping growing, you've got, I saw it on the news today on the American TV, like some of these big companies that have been around for years, Sears, having to shut shops because they're getting less footfall. So there is already technology-inspired change underway in all sorts of areas, and that's exactly what will happen in our arena, in electric vehicles. So the autonomous thing and the shared thing is huge. I think the electric vehicle bit, until people start finding themselves in an electric vehicle and feeling how exciting it is, the acceleration, the quietness, the whole feeling that it gives to people, it has a whole range of benefits. Yes, it's different. Yeah, it's not old school. It's not that, you know, cut and thrust and thrill of sticking your foot down. You know what it's like. But there's a price to pay for all of that, and we're transitioning from that world into something new. So, you know, hopefully that answers the question, but there's lots of things that are combining, and they're really big things.
Okay. Any questions from the audience? We have a few minutes to take questions from the audience. And...
Hi.
Come on. This is your chance to ask a question of the person who runs R&D for all of Mercedes.
Yeah, hi, my name is Steve, and I just wanted to ask you, for refueling of an electric vehicle, obviously this is one of the things that gives the consumer a bunch of questions, right? What do you see as the best thing? Well, I live in the state of California. We're pretty committed to it. But what is the best thing you can ask for from state and local governments to help you deliver on this new paradigm, this new promise?
Okay. So the question is, what's the best thing a government could do to help you?
The short answer to that question is infrastructure. Because once you have millions of electric cars on the road, we're going to have a different infrastructure in terms of electric power distribution than what we have today. Normally, car makers don't get into the business of infrastructure. We have made a decision with some other OEMs to kind of pool our resources here and actually do what we usually don't do and get into the infrastructure game during this transition period. If countries, governments want this to go faster, be more convenient for customer, anything that they can help on the infrastructure side will help. And it's not just about the high-performance charging stations along the interstates if you go from city to city. Also in neighborhoods, if you're the first person that puts up a wall box on my street, I was the first person, and you get the first pick. I have the full 22 kilowatts, you know, Germany, everything works, it's a great place to live. If all my neighbors would want to go for the 22 kilowatts at the same time, it's a little bit of those situations. Oops, that won't work. So infrastructure is going to be key, but because with electric mobility, for most of your use cases, every day going back and forth to work, you live at the gas station. It's your home, and you can load overnight. I'm quite optimistic about the urban scenario, and we'll get the regional and coast-to-coast scenario worked on in the next few years here.
All righty. Do we have time for one more question? Do we have one more question?
Hello.
Okay.
How are you?
Good, Jacob.
When will Mercedes release its first autonomous vehicle?
Excuse me?
When will Mercedes release its first autonomous vehicle?
In terms of the definition of autonomous, as we all know, and it's the buzz topic of the show, you have level 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you talk level 4 and 5 in a big way, in a commercialized product, not just putting a fleet out there to show that you can do it and all that type of stuff, I think, and we haven't nailed down to an exact date, I think the way technology is working, there's going to be a lot of action there between 2020 to 2025 in that time frame. Before that, yes, there will be also autonomous vehicles in certain cases and so on, where we can showcase this technology. In terms of commercialization, I believe a lot of things will happen between 2020 and 2025.
Okay. Just in time for you to have kids. Believe me, you want that. So we're out of time. Oh,
One more,
Yeah.
maybe.
Oh.
Last one.
okay. Yes. Who's got a microphone?
Actually, this is a question for you, Guy. How have you been active in influencing the way Mercedes and this technology is being incorporated into the design phase? I'm interested to hear, your thoughts on where that future's going. And
Well, I hope to influence them in two particular areas. One is marketing and social media, because that's my background. But I am also a user of Mercedes products. So whenever I see him, I say, I have a E-Series Mercedes, and there's something called Distronic. And what Distronic does is it lets you say you're on a freeway and you turn it on, and it keeps this distance between you and the previous car, and you set the top speed so that when there's no cars in front of you, it doesn't go to 200 miles an hour. So let's say you set it to 65 and you're fine, and then you decide to take an off-ramp. But when you take an off-ramp, there's no cars in front of you on the off-ramp. So the Distronic says, go 65, but I can't go 65 and take the off-ramp. So this kind of question, like real-world questions and real-world issues, I bring to the head of R&D of Mercedes, and he says, well, in 6 months, the S-Class is going to have that, where it understands, because we have better mapping, where you are down to 10 centimeters, and it's going to know it's an off-ramp, and the radius of the off-ramp prevents you from going 65. So even though you said 65, you don't really mean 65. We're going to slow you down and take you around the corner. So that's how I try to do it.
So obviously, Guy, we already have mind-reading technology then developed.
So please, please join me in thanking Roger and Ola. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We have another of these inspirational talks starting in 35 minutes. The next topic will be artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence has a great deal to do with autonomous driving, as you can imagine. So we'll see you back here in 35 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.